Boom, and we're live. Hello.
Yo.
What's going on, man?
Man.
Good to see you.
Thanks. I feel a little overdressed. Sorry about
You
this.
look good.
You know.
Oh, look at that.
The Starry Night there.
Yeah, you're really into that, huh?
Oh, yeah, I got.
That's what's on your phone.
So
as
you
well.
remembered, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on the phone. Starry Night. You know what I like about Starry Night? It's not what Van Gogh saw that night. It's what he felt.
How do you know what he felt?
Because this is not a representation of reality.
Oh, okay.
And anything that deviates from reality is reality that has filtered through your senses. And I think art at its highest is exactly that. If this was an exact depiction of reality, it would be a photograph, and I don't need the artist.
Okay.
So even photographs that take you to a slightly other kind of dimension as you gaze upon them, it's more than what was actually going on at the time. And that's that's art taken to the craft of photography.
That's why you like it?
That's one of the reasons why. Plus, I think it was the very first painting where its title is the background. Think about that. This could have been called, in the full painting, obviously this is a snippet.
town.
Yeah. So there's a town there, there's a cypress tree, there's a church steeple. It could have been called Cypress Tree. It could have been called Sleepy Village. It could have been called Rolling Hills. But no, it's called Starry Night. And everything in front of it is just in the way. And how often do you paint something where the title is the background? That's my point. And in this particular case, the background is the universe. And so for me, this was a pivot point in art. And it's 1889, which is recent given the history of paintings and, that go all the way back. So, yeah, there it is.
Is that your favorite painting ever?
I have to say yes.
It has to be. You have a vest and a phone cover. If it's not, what are you doing?
And I have 4 or 5 ties that have this painting on them in different ways. Yeah, so I'm all in. I'm all in.
What's interesting is that the town is...
Wait, have you seen Starry Night in Bacon? Somebody did. Dig it up on the screen. Somebody did it in Bacon. It was just crazy.
Oh, God, how weird.
Yeah,
That's weird.
Yeah.
How weird. Go back to the original one, please. What's interesting about the original one is that the town is realistically depicted. The trees are recognizable as trees. If you ever saw a sky that looked like that, the end would be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Those
Plus,
are
that
end
swirling
times.
is
Yeah.
not wind and it's not clouds, because if it was clouds, you wouldn't see the stars.
Right. What is it?
It's how he felt. That's all I can tell you. By the way, that is a real evening. So it's not even the evening, it's early morning. The crescent moon, when it's that orientation, means this is before sunrise. And that white object lower on the horizon, that's sort of glowy, that's very likely Venus. And that enables us to trace over what set of weeks this painting was actually painted. So it's kind of like forensic astronomy.
Has
if you will.
anyone done an analysis of like where he must have been?
Yeah, it's well known. Yeah, he was in a real place.
And so that
He didn't
really
pull
would
this out
be-
of his ass, right? I mean, it was
Right.
he painted what he saw, folded into what he felt. Yeah,
Heavy.
that's how art should be, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what do you need artists for?
Make cool shit.
The cool stuff is something that they felt and it came out of them.
Yeah.
And they feel stuff. Artists feel the natural world in ways different from the rest of us. And that's why they're artists.
Do they, or do they just express it with?
Oh, sorry. Yes, they not only
more
yes,
skill.
we all can feel it, but to be able to express it, that's a whole other talent.
Right. Just to
And you know what I
capture
think about often? Why do we all know who Paul Revere is? Right? We it's a household name. Yet, is there any other war ever fought in the history of the world where a household name is the name of the person who told other people the enemy was coming? We can mention his name, but we can't list the generals that all fought in that war. Why? It's because a poem was written about him. And he had this mundane job, let me tell people the enemy is coming. And so the artist, in this case the poet, elevated the mundane to something that forces you to reckon it with your understanding of this world. What's Joyce Kilmer's most famous poem? It's about a tree. Dogs piss on trees. You drive by trees, you don't even know they're there. Yet a poem about a tree. I'll never see something as lovely as a tree. Oh my gosh. So the art forces you to pause and just reflect on things that you took for granted, things that became ordinary in your life, and they were elevated they get beatified by the talents of artists.
That's a word.
Oh, beatify? You never?
No.
Beatify, yeah, I'm using it loosely. It's the intermediate step between being an ordinary person and being a saint.
Oh.
The beatification of someone in the Catholic Church.
I would have thought it's making something more beautiful.
Maybe. Okay, I don't. It could have similar
I was
roots.
just
Be
guessing.
at be you. Yeah. It could come from that. But to be beatified is the first steps en route to sainthood. Yeah. That's if I remember the word correctly.
Here it goes.
Oh, you got
Jamie
it.
pulled it up. Definition. To make supremely happy, Christianity declared to have attained blessedness of heaven and authorized the title blessed and limited public religious honor. She was beatified 6 years after her death.
Yeah, so I think you can't become a saint unless you've previously been beatified. I think that's the rule. But I'm looking at the number one definition there, to make supremely happy. So that's interesting. Yeah, that moved ahead of it.
Definition of beatified.
Yeah.
It's a weird
So
word.
to beatify, wait, the verb was up there, you had on the screen. Roman Catholic Church. He beatified Juan Diego, an Indian believed to have a vision of the Virgin Mary. Synonyms: canonize, sanctify, hallow, consecrate. So I think if you take something ordinary and you subject it to the interpretation of an artist, it can be beatified and elevated on a level where it becomes a household recognition of its importance in this world. So
Okay,
my brother's an
follow you.
artist. My brother's an artist. So I have
What kind of art?
fine art, but also he paints and he teaches history of art. So I've had this sort of baptism my whole life, being exposed to him. I'm the sibling scientist, but they have an artist in the family. Everyone should have an artist in the family.
I've got an uncle.
And of course, the whole STEAM movement, science, technology, engineering, and math. The artists got in there and say, wait, so the STEM movement, science, technology, engineering, math, they want to throw in the A to get art as part of that movement. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Change it from STEM to STEAM.
It's just STEAM, so you get full steam ahead. STEAM is a better word than that. Well, they're both good words for what they need, but
That just sounds like a bunch of awesome stuff. Like
it does,
you know,
and yeah.
why not throw in comedy and building houses? You know, it seems like you're getting it's like the LGBTQAI. Like things get really squirrely when you start adding more letters.
Yeah, you can add letters, but if it doesn't spell anything, then the memorization has to kick in. But STEAM, you don't have to memorize that. It's already there for you.
Right.
Yeah, so it's cleverly conceived. I think the abbreviation was its tacit recognition that these are elements in society that advance civilization and grow the economy, actually. So, in fact, there's hardly any growth economy in the world that isn't growing because it has been for not having been touched by science or technology. Everything. Just think about it. So if you're around running, you don't have them on your show, but if you're running around saying, I don't like science, science is bad, science is evil, okay, well then you will die in poverty if you elect officials who believe that as well.
Who the fuck thinks that science is bad in 2019? And how did they express this? Do they express it through science?
Okay, so
You know what I'm saying? Like, are they saying it online?
I have a book coming out in a month called Letters from an Astrophysicist. Okay, yeah, it's not out yet.
But I've got it.
It's not. How did you get a copy?
But I got
don't
it.
even have my copy yet.
But I got
okay.
it.
What I'm saying in there, there's a whole chapter on just angry people who don't like anything, including science. And one of them, it's a riff. He just said, I hate that science, and that science brings some of the worst things that's ever happened to humanity, and pollution, and this. He goes on and on and on and on and on. And so I reply. It's Letters from an Astrophysicist, and I reply as calmly and as rationally as possible when you get attacked that way. But what I'm saying is, not everyone embraces everything that science does. And some will cherry pick it. You have the science deniers for global warming. You have science deniers with vaccines. You have science deniers with GMOs. There's all manner of science denying going on in modern society. And, we in a free society, what are you going to do, right? The people can think what they want. But if thinking what they want influences policy, which then affects everybody, then your science denial has consequences to the economic health of the nation. And by the way, it's not only economics, the economic health, it's your physical health, because medicine flows through advances in science, as well as our security.
Well, there's people that deny some aspects of science while conveniently using other. That's where it gets weird, right? You're driving a car that's relying on GPS. You're using a phone to complain about the global warming hoax.
Correct. One of my more sort of popular tweets was, you remember when we had the photo of the black hole from a distant galaxy, and it was banner headlines, maybe a year ago, less than a year ago, banner headlines, and first photo ever of a black hole, and it was an astounding engineering achievement to accomplish that. It was multiple telescopes all around the world pooling the data to get it right, and it was one of the greatest collaborative efforts we've ever undertaken in my field of astrophysics. Okay. And everybody was loving the results. So all I tweeted was, scientists report first photo of a black hole. Public. Scientists report humans are warming the Earth. Oh, you brought it up. Okay. Scientists. We produced the first ever image of a supermassive black hole 55 million light years away. The response? Scientists. We've concluded that humans are catastrophically warming the Earth. Response. That conflicts with what I want to be true, so it must be false.
Well,
that is the cherry picking of science.
It is the cherry picking of science, but the global warming thing is very much connected to a certain type of ideology. A certain type of person who thinks of themselves.
It doesn't matter to me.
No nonsense person.
What I'm saying, yes, it does matter. What I'm trying to say is that is a demographic that has cherry picked science to deny human-caused global warming. There are other demographics that have cherry-picked other science to deny other things. And it's not all located in one political spectrum, one political branch.
Right.
So you tend to find liberal folk complaining that the conservatives who have embraced no global warming platform are denying science, and they need science on their side. And many of those same people are rubbing crystals together to be healed by the crystal energy, or they're denying vaccines, thinking that they're somehow bad for you. And so all of this requires some or total rejection of mainstream science. And we're living in that world now. And I don't know, I don't think it'll stop the progress of civilization, but it can certainly slow it down and occasionally stall it.
Well, that is certainly a problem, but how big of a problem is it? Like, how many people are really in denial of science in 2019? And it's got to be
for me, in a free country,
number.
That's not what matters. What matters is, in a free country, that you elect officials who are not.
Officials?
Yes, you elect people who are scientifically literate.
Yes.
They don't have to be scientists. And if they're not scientifically literate, they should be self-aware of that, and then listen to people who are.
Right.
So
don't you think what they're doing though is they're doing what their constituents would like them to do?
That's why I don't beat politicians over the head. Ever. I don't do that. We're a republic, we're a democracy. Whatever they believe, if they think Earth is 6,000 years old and they got elected, it's because the people who elected them believe Earth is 6,000 years old.
Or because they're willing to let that one go because they believe in their policies.
Possibly. That's a good point, because you have a portfolio of thoughts and beliefs.
Or because he's such a profound Christian. I mean, he's so profoundly Christian that he just wants
plenty
the
of
literal
Christians
definition
who
of the
are
Bible.
connected to science that don't, including the Pope, by the way. Can you get more Christian than the Pope? All right.
Yeah, he believes in science now. This new Pope is pretty interesting.
Yeah, if you read his encyclical from a couple of years ago, it's a scientifically literate document.
Yeah.
And so it's not, he's still religious, right? So Jesus still rose from the dead, and there were still miracles and all the rest of that in the New Testament. So he's not in denial of that. But given that, he is saying, oh my gosh, here's something we, the religious community and scientists, can partner behind, and that is we want to save life on Earth. And so we have to be better shepherds of what is going on this Earth. And one of them is we don't want to flood low-lying countries in the South Pacific, where the average sea level is 10 feet above sea level, or whatever it is. You're going to lose these countries if you keep melting not the ice caps, because that would include a north, and there's no land in the north. So the glacier ice, that's land-based ice, right? Because any ice that's in the water floating, that can melt and it's not going to change the water level. So it's why you can do this experiment. It's really cool. Fill up your glass, put a few cubes of ice in a glass of water. Fill the glass up as much as you possibly can without spilling it. And the ice is bobbing above that level, okay? Because ice is about 10% buoyant on that. About 10% of an ice cube will be lifted above. This is the iceberg equation, right? All right, that's the tip of the iceberg. Well, you see 10% above, and 90% is not visible to you. This is, by the way, I don't want to get to too many off ramps here, but that's one of the things that they did right in Titanic. Okay, if you look at the earliest Titanic movie that was in black and white, they see this huge iceberg on the horizon, and then they can't swear away from it because, oh my gosh, it doesn't have, no. The iceberg that cuts the bottom of your boat is a little bit of ice sticking out above the water because 90% of it is underwater, and that's where the damage occurs. And in the James Cameron Titanic, the iceberg that they hit above water looks like a little chunk of ice. Oh, that couldn't hurt anything. All the damage was underwater. Anyhow, so back to this. So do this experiment, and then let the glass sit there and let the ice melt. And the water level will stay the same. Because when ice melts, it takes up lower volume than it was when it became ice. And that's why pipes break.
I thought pipes break just because the water expands.
Yeah, I just described that in the opposite direction.
Oh, so because as it freezes it, but I didn't know it gets larger.
That's what expansion means. What
Right.
kind of what's with your vocabulary here, right?
No, but I'm saying like.
No,
like
right.
when
So
you
your
freeze
ice cube is
something,
sitting
it gets
10%.
larger?
Your ice cube is sitting 10% above the water level, and it
Right.
melts and becomes water. The water takes up 90% of the volume of the ice.
Right.
So that just melts back into the water, and it doesn't overflow, even though it was sticking above the water line when you had the glass.
So when you
now let's
freeze
do
pipes-
the opposite.
Okay.
There's water in the pipes. Oh,
Right.
can I tell you something that might blow your mind?
No. Sure.
Is that allowed? I don't know. How many times is your mind? At least once a day.
Yeah, at least once.
You need your mind blown, okay? Here's how it works.
Okay.
So let's put water in the pipes, okay? And then the temperature drops. Now, pipes have a certain strength.
Right.
Copper pipes, they're rigid, okay?
I grew up around breaking pipes.
But, okay, so now watch.
Massachusetts.
So the water's in there, and now the temperature begins to drop, okay? The water wants to turn to ice, but it can't because the pipe is containing it. So it just sits there, okay, at 32 degrees as water, even though the temperature outside is dropping below 32 degrees, okay? And it still sits there, gets to 30 degrees, 29. The pipe is squeezing the attempt of this water to become ice. And the act of squeezing it prevents the temperature from dropping. Okay? And as the temperature drops, depending on how strong the pipe is, and the temperature gradient across it, as the outside temperature continues, it gets to now 25 degrees. The pipe is still holding on to the liquid water, and it's still 32 degrees inside there, and it holds on to, and it keeps happening, it keeps happening. You get a point where the pipe can no longer contain the water, and the water freezes spontaneously. It just goes right down to that temperature, and the pipe is helpless in the face of this. So the point is, the stronger the pipe is, the lower the temperature has to be outside for the freezing water to break it.
So theoretically, if you had a pipe that was made of a stronger material than copper, you can get even lower than that.
You can get an even lower temperature.
How low can you get? Because when things freeze, they have to expand.
So what? No, only when water freezes.
Why does water expand when
It's a remarkable fact about water that is shared by very few other ingredients. Most things, when they cool, they shrink, as all men know.
Oh, hey.
So most materials, because things cooler, the vibrating molecules slow down and they take up less space. Water is the opposite of that as it passes down through. So I'm going to describe to you an extraordinary fact about water and why we're alive today. Okay? So watch. Let's take a lake that has fish in it. Okay? Temperature drops outside. And the lake slowly begins to get cooler because there's a time lag between the air temperature and the waters. That's why the first freeze, the lake is still there. It's got to be cold longer. All right, so what happens? The water gets cold on the surface. Okay? And it begins to... Okay, the water gets cold on the surface and it begins to shrink. So that water it shrinks. That makes it denser, it falls to the bottom. Fine. It does that down to about 4 degrees Celsius. As it goes from 4 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius, the freezing point, it begins to expand and become less dense than the water. So now, as the water wants to actually freeze, it stays on top. When it does freeze, you freeze the top surface of the lake. Well, how about the water below it? It's insulated. from the dropping air temperature, and the fish don't die. Imagine if ice were denser than water. What would happen? You'd freeze the top layer, it would sink. The bottom is frozen. Freeze the next layer, it sinks, and fish would be systematically forced to swim in shallower and shallower waters until they were all freeze-dried on the top surface of the lake. And all fishes would be dead every winter in every lake.
I think it's fish.
What?
I think you're supposed to say fishes.
Fishes is a double plural.
You can do that?
Yeah. You never
All
heard
fish
fishes?
would be dead?
You never
like
heard-
all deer? Would you say all deers?
Well, because generally it's one. If you had multiple kinds of deer, yeah.
Oh, so if you had like Sitka
Yeah,
deer
but
and
it's
white
but it's rare that they're all in the same place. You generally have one kind of deer in one
okay.
place. But if the ocean has many kind of fish in the same place.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So you would say fishes.
Fishes
Because you're
is
talking
it's
about
like it's a
bunch of
double
different
plural.
kinds.
It's different kinds of plural fish.
Oh,
Yeah.
double blow my mind.
Oh, you didn't know that.
blew it again.
Oh no.
I didn't know. I never thought about it that way.
The many fishes in the
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry.
Fishes in the sea.
Yeah. So multiple plurals of different
How
kinds
cold
of
does it
fish.
have to get where ocean water freezes? 'Cause that's
Well,
where it
well,
gets
it's salt.
fucking
It's
really
salt water. Do you have the
What are
word
you pulling
fishes
up,
up there?
James?
Some
What
weird
is this?
anomaly that happened where there was too little oxygen in the water, and somehow the frozen fish got pushed out in a wall of ice. This is South Dakota a couple years ago.
Whoa. So there's too little oxygen.
I don't know.
because
I
of-
can't explain that. I don't know
Well,
what happened there.
If you look at the
Somewhere else,
if you look at the green in the water, most likely it's algae. So that happens with certain lakes that get polluted with certain types of algae.
Right, you can kill the lake
Yes.
by doing that.
You can kill
yeah.
the lake, and well, you get it in the ocean too. You get these zones. But
But I don't
that-
see how you get frozen fish though.
That's incredible. But
Yeah.
Stop. Go back up.
Yeah.
Scroll down so we can read it. Fish frozen in a wall of ice, South Dakota's
Mm-hmm.
Lake Andes National Wildlife Refuge. That's incredible, man. Is that a video, Jamie?
Yeah,
I think it's just a picture.
I
that's
don't know how they
amazing.
froze because they can just swim to where it's not frozen. So I'd have to do more homework on that one to see what caused that.
Wow.
Yeah, so my point is, because of this property of water, that ice floats, it insulates the bottom layers of the lake, and fish can survive over the winter
That's how
because of
igloos
this.
work too, right? Insulates so you can inside you get like a nice little warm spot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, if you put a barrier between you and the changing elements outside, that's basically an insulating layer.
Have you ever gone ice fishing?
No, I never.
It's a good way
I'm a
to
New
get away
York
from
City
your wife.
person.
Well, they have them in New York City. People go ice fishing, I'm sure, in Central
Wait, do
Park.
women go ice fishing to get away from their husbands?
They do.
Yeah,
some of
okay.
them do.
Well,
It's a
they're-
joke.
okay.
It's like, why do people golf? You know,
Okay.
but ice fishing is particularly weird because you have to continually scoop out the ice and maybe even drill again.
Right. So that works because frozen water is less dense than non-frozen water, and it's one of the rare ingredients for which that's so. And it's likely there would be no life on land or anywhere on Earth if that were the case, if the opposite of that were the case. So water is a very special ingredient to life on Earth. It's cited by many religious folks as saying, see, Earth is sacred for these. It's in the list of special ingredients for what make Earth habitable for life.
That is a really strange thing, though, that if you can contain it somehow in an incredibly strong pipe,
Yes.
that it won't freeze.
Yes, it won't freeze.
What is a temperature variant, though? Like, is there a number?
Well, that's
where
why
it doesn't matter?
that's why pipes don't freeze when it just hits 30 degrees outside. That's
Right.
not when you hear it.
Right.
It freezes when it gets really low.
And
when
they crack.
And yeah, and then it'll break the copper like it's paper. It'll
Now-
tear it like it's not. Now, on the flip side of that, try this at home. Take an ice cube that's like at 30 degrees. Okay. How would you measure that? Pull out an ice cube, and just because they'll be at near 0 Fahrenheit if you have a good freezer, just pull it out and leave it on the counter. Put it on a wooden cutting board, okay, and just let it sit there for like 10 minutes, and its temperature will come up. There'll be a point where it hasn't melted yet, but you can take it and squeeze the ice cube, and you can force it to melt by squeezing it. Because you're forcing it into a smaller volume that it currently contains. And the only way you can accomplish that is if the ice turns to water. Then it will occupy a smaller volume. So the act of squeezing ice can actually melt it.
So if you had some sort of a pipe that could physically constrict, like something that had threads in it that could wind down to a smaller size, you could stick a cylinder of ice in it, and you could slowly crank it
Oh yeah,
down.
yes.
It would melt.
Yes, you can melt. If you had some machine that squeezed ice,
Yeah.
and the colder the ice is, the harder, the harder it would be for you to squeeze it to accomplish that. So it's sort of fun with ice. In fact, you know what else you can do? This is a harder experiment to do. If you take a mesh, like a screen mesh, it has to be sort of wider openings than a screen door would. So what would this be? Like a fence, like a chain link fence. And hold it horizontally and get a big block of ice and just place it on top. A block of ice that's heavy. What'll happen is the weight of the ice will melt the ice in the contact points of the chain itself because it's feeling that pressure to squeeze it into a smaller volume. But by the time it melts, the ice has now passed through the grate and it will refreeze on the other side. So you can actually pass a block of ice through a chain link fence vertically just by pushing it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a slow experiment, but it's real.
How long?
I mean, it depends on the temperature of the
2 foot
ice
block
and how much it weighs.
Right.
Because the pressure is what. This is why you can ice skate. Why can you skate on ice? Because the edge of the blade is very high pressure on the ice, and it's melting a bead of water. And you're actually gliding on water when you're skating. You're not skating on slippery ice.
Really?
Yes.
I thought you were just cutting the ice with the blade.
Well, so the blade. Have you ever seen a sharpened blade? It's not just flat. There's actually a concave cross section to it. So each edge, the left edge and the right edge, is basically a knife edge. Okay, not quite as sharp as a knife, but you can feel how it's sharp. So that when you lean on that edge, either your inner edge or outer edge, your entire body weight is being held up on a very narrow surface area of the blade. So the pressure is extreme. It's like, 1,000 pounds per square inch. You don't weigh 1,000 pounds, but you're not skating on a square inch, right? So you do the math on that, and what you can have is you will skate, and you're actually, what makes it so slippery on ice skates is because you're moving on a bead of water that freezes right behind you as you go past it.
Dude.
Yeah. So it's possible for ice to be so cold you can't really skate on it, because even that pressure is not enough to melt it.
How cold would it have to be?
That last I did a calculation, was really cold, like tens of degrees below zero.
How does dry ice work?
Oh, it's just frozen carbon dioxide. That's all. Oh. So here's the difference. You have a block of frozen H2O and a block of frozen CO2. So there they are. It turns out the air pressure on Earth is high enough, at sea level, is high enough to allow the ice to melt and sustain a liquid state. Okay? The CO2, under air pressure, normal air pressure, it wants to melt, but it can't sustain a liquid, and it goes straight to gas. If we had much higher air pressure, you could have CO2 melt and have liquid CO2. So now watch what happens. So can I blow your mind again? This is really good stuff, okay? It's good like physical chemistry. So here you go. So watch what happens. So what happens if I reduce the air pressure? Okay? Well, the transition from ice to water is still the same. It's not affected. But the boiling point is affected. As you know, cooking times have to be adjusted on mountaintops, because when you boil water, it's not 212 degrees. Depending on the height of the mountain, there's less air pressing down that's preventing it from boiling, okay? The boiling point is not some absolute fact about the water. It has to do with what the air pressure is sitting above it. If you have extremely high air pressure, water has to go to a much higher temperature before it boils. So the boiling point of water that's reported in all textbooks is at sea level, at 1 atmospheric pressure. That's how you get 212 degrees. If you start reducing the atmospheric pressure, it's 210 degrees, 205 degrees, 200 degrees, 190 degrees, 180 degrees.
180 degrees?
Oh! Yes, and so that's not as hot as 212 degrees, so you got to cook the food longer. All cooking times are increased for this reason. So now watch, I'm not done with you.
Uh-oh.
Let's keep reducing the air pressure. Okay?
Theoretical? Or
Well,
like possible on Earth?
No.
Like Himalayas?
Yeah, or take it up. You can ascend in some kind of copter or some kind of device, or air balloon, or whatever. But I'm saying you can do this experiment in a laboratory.
Okay.
Okay? You keep reducing the air pressure. Boiling point keeps dropping. It's 170 degrees, 150, 120, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Holy shit. What happens? The ice melts and becomes water. The water evaporates and becomes steam, and all of that's happening at 32 degrees. There is an atmospheric pressure for which water, ice, and steam coexist. And it's called the triple point of water. And all ingredients have a triple point.
Wow. What is the
And
atmospheric pressure?
Mars is very close to the triple point of water. So you can have a simultaneous bath in certain regions of Mars. A simultaneous bath because the air pressure is so low. It's like 1/100th Earth's air pressure. It's very, very low. So you have a place where a pot of water, ice cubes, and steam are coming out all at once. It's at the triple point.
So
So here's the lesson here is we live life in our world at one atmospheric pressure, at one room temperature, atmospheric pressure, and we define what is normal based on that life experience, based on how our senses interact with that environment. But the actual universe is far freakier than what our senses are exposed, our five senses are exposed to on Earth.
what did you think about Elon Musk's idea about nuking the poles of Mars in order to make it warmer?
Yeah, so some of these are kind of pie in the sky ideas,
Right.
But let's get to what he's trying to get at.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to introduce warmth. You want to block the ozone. You want to block the ultraviolet, so that you can protect organic life. All right. So we have an ozone layer. It's the 3 oxygen atoms, O3, and ozone likes ultraviolet light. So ultraviolet light comes from the sun and gets eaten by ozone. Gets eaten. And when you do that, the ultraviolet light doesn't make it to Earth's surface. So even though they say, oh, wear sunscreen and sunblock 45, yes, that's for the 1% of the ultraviolet that gets through the atmosphere. If you're above the atmosphere, you are fried. So, because ultraviolet is highly hostile to organic molecules and what we're made of as life. So, you want to protect, you want to give life a chance. So, you want to not only heat Mars, you want to find a way to block the ultraviolet light coming from the sun. So, you need some mechanism, if not ozone, or just live underground, for example. Okay? And so I don't think we should think of the idea as a literal thing, but just it's a general principle of what you want to accomplish on Mars in doing so. So you want to warm it, you want to protect what could be the future of biochemistry, and then you seed it, and then you wait. You don't want to wait too long. You want to sort of speed it up if you could, and then you terraform Mars. SpaceX has, I visited him a couple of times. He's got a mug you can buy there. Then it has Mars on it, okay? And then you put hot liquid in it, and Mars turns to an arable blue-green marble. So yeah, it's very good. And it doesn't tell you that when you say, oh, I got a Mars mug, you know? And you show it off, and oh my gosh, when did that happen? It's an Earth mug, but it doesn't look like Earth.
There's a lot of people that go on.
Also, we
camping.
think there's a lot of water that was once on Mars, which is a certainty. We think it's just sitting below in a permafrost. So you wouldn't have to bring water to Mars. By the way, in the really distant future, you can just redirect a comet and get all the water you need. But
How far distant is that?
the comet's everywhere, dude. We're in a
Right.
shooting gallery.
Yeah, that's not what I asked.
Oh,
How
what-
far
oh.
away do you think it is before we could redirect?
How far
one?
away in time?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. We know how to do it, but there's no real incentive. So there's no funded engineering plan to do it, but we know how to do it on paper.
We know how to do it in a conceivable way.
Oh yeah. So first of all, it happens with or without us, because we are in the shooting path of countless thousands of asteroids and comets. So what you would do is you'd find one that's headed close to us anyway, in the 7th orbit down the line or the 100th orbit down the line, and then you'd slightly deflect it in such a way that it would then collide with Mars or even Earth if you wanted. Earth needed some more fresh water.
Yeah, I heard that there's a possibility.
But the problem is, if something really big that would fill lakes if that collided with Earth, that would just be bad for life on Earth. Because it's a spontaneous deposit of energy that can change the climate. So you want to do that on a planet that you're trying to terraform.
Isn't that the speculation of how water got here in the first place?
So the jury's still out on that. There are tags in the oceans, in the water molecule, that tell you that the water must have come from more than one source. So that's what's confusing things. We want it to be a simple thing. It all came by comets, or it all came from inside the Earth, through volcanoes. Volcanoes emit lakes, and historically, lakes and oceans worth of water just out of their calderas. So the problem is, as we say in science, overdetermined. There's plenty of comets to have delivered all the water. There's plenty of water that could have come out of volcanoes to give us all the water. But in the oceans, it's clearly a mixture, and so the final word is still out on that.
What do you think about what's going on in Hawaii now with the protesting of the building of this largest and latest telescope?
Yes, the TMT, 30-meter telescope, which would be the largest ever by far of any kind of telescope. The history of astronomy is one where bigger telescopes become bigger buckets to collect light. That's the only... Telescopes today are the same as telescopes when they were invented. They're just bigger, right? The principle behind them is bigger because what they're doing is simple. All you're trying to do is get as much light as possible. And the more light you get, the dimmer is the object you can detect, and the farther away is the object you can see. And so for every generation of new large telescopes that have been built, it has increased and deepened our understanding of our place in the universe. So that's the background. The proposal is for a 30-meter telescope, largest ever, on the big island of Hawaii in Mauna Kea, where there are other telescopes there.
That's where the Keck is, right?
Yeah, I think it's where the Keck is. I think they sited it in a place that's sort of tucked behind most sight lines to it, but that's not so much what's important here. It's that the native Hawaiians, from what I've read, view the mountain as a sacred place, and so to put a telescope, yet another telescope there, becomes sort of invasion of sacred land. And so yeah, there's a standoff. Last I looked, I mean, people protesting in the streets, and there's some native Hawaiians who embrace this because it means jobs, high quality jobs, engineering jobs. You got to build it, you got to maintain it. There's an entire supportive infrastructure for that means jobs, and it's done in collaboration with the University of Hawaii. And all the other telescopes are partnered with the University of Hawaii, where people are educated there. And so at the end of the day, you have to ask, well, how are you going to make decisions going forward? Are you going to make them democratically? Then you take a vote. Or do you want the natives to be the deciders of their own fate? And is that democratic? Okay, so the natives vote, okay? Or is it the few people who are protesting? Do they win the day? I mean, it's complicated, and it's very there are a lot of nuanced issues going on there. There's a branch of thinking that the United States government and normal municipal leaders have no authority over it. There's some who claim that this is native Hawaiian property that does not belong to any municipal entity of the U.S. government, so therefore even state representatives have no say, right? So there's a lot going on there, okay? But if I were to weigh in, this is how I would do so, okay? I would say first, I think what should happen is, I don't know if they even have the infrastructure, I don't know how the system is set up, but if they could set it up this way, if the mountain is viewed as sacred by the natives should have entire say of what happens to the mountain, okay? That's how I think that should be. So now, what you want to make sure is that whatever decision gets made and voted upon by the natives, that it's fully informed. You don't want to vote being misinformed or underinformed in any election, let alone whether you're voting for a telescope on your sacred mountain. Okay? Otherwise, you're voting out of nowhere, right? You're influencing your future based on partial information, and decisions based on partial information are bad decisions no matter what. Okay, so I would say hold a vote with the natives and make sure everybody's fully informed. And here's a bit of information I just want to add to the information. Okay? You know what we do as astrophysicists. We study the universe. Rather passively at that. We sit there at the end of a telescope and wait for light to reach us. It's not a petri dish where we stir it or heat it or freeze it or crack it, or we're just kind of there, communing with the cosmos. My PhD thesis was significantly fed by data that I obtained from mountaintops at telescopes. I got my data from mountains in Chile, Cerro Tololo, and it employed all the local people. That's another telescope. So there's all these telescopes that all have specific access points to the universe. They're not all asking the same questions.
Right.
And so it's the collection of all the data that gives us the complete understanding, what we think is a complete understanding of the universe. So what we do is try to understand our place in the universe. And all I'm going to say is that if you have power over what happens on that mountain, and it's sacred to you, because whatever that is, it is something important to you and your sense of your understanding of your place in this world. That would be spiritual significance. I can tell you that what we learn as astrophysicists from those mountaintops gives us a deeper understanding of who and what we are in this universe. So I would say that whatever is your concept of God, be it the creator of the universe, the spirit energy that pervades all of space and time, whatever is your concept, the discoveries of astrophysicists bring you closer to it.
I get your perspective. Let me be the opposing view. They feel...
No, I'm not trying to...
No, I know you're not.
This is just information.
Okay.
This is information, and I walk out of the room, and then you all vote, right? I'm not, we believe in democracy here and majority rules. That's kind of a good thing. It's kind of worked, right? But if it's not majority rules, I don't know how they're going to make decisions. But let's say, invent a future where the natives vote. If they vote, I want to make sure they heard what I just said. And now take control of your own fate.
I just don't think they care. I think they've decided that that's a sacred space and they don't want anybody doing anything to it.
Then
It
that's
means
their
something
decision.
to them. You think that's okay?
I don't judge people's.
But if you wanted to make a convincing appeal to them,
No, all I would say is
Wouldn't
what I
you-
just told you.
that's it.
That is all I would tell them. And when they vote, I want them to understand that fact. I could take it one step further and say, mountaintops, because of the access they give astrophysicists, and by proxy us all, to the universe, are sacred places to scientists. Okay? Now, it's not sacred in a religious sense, but it's sacred in terms of a pathway to knowing and understanding who and what we are in this universe. We place great value on that. So, but it's not our land.
So specifically, these things have to take
Europeans
place.
didn't come to Hawaii and find legions of scientists there conducting experiments. Okay, they found native peoples governing themselves. So that's that. The consequence, if it gets voted down and that's permanent and there's no way around that, that telescope is still going to be built. It just won't be built in Hawaii.
Well, where will it be built? Don't they have to be built on mountaintops?
Yeah, so there are
It's
other
an
mountaintops.
elevation issue, right?
Yeah, you want to be above, schmutzy clouds and haze and You want a dry environment so there's less rain.
I went to the
fewer
Keck.
clouds. Oh, you visited?
Yeah,
Very
I went
good.
to the Keck more than 10 years ago, the first time. And it was, I got very fortunate. It was a night where the moon was not out.
Yes. Moon is
And
not the
it was-
astronomer's
we
favorite
were-
thing. Yeah, you want the darkest sky you can.
We were worried as we were driving up there that it was really cloudy, but we drove through the clouds. And
Yep.
we got to the top, and we got to the observatory, and it was the most amazing, without telescopes. There was telescopes there, but without telescopes. It was the most amazing view of the sky I'd ever seen in my life, and it changed my perspective of our place in the universe.
This is
it
what
looked like
we
we
do.
were on a spaceship, like we were flying through the universe because of the diffused lighting on the Big Island, because it's all set up so that it doesn't ruin what they're trying to accomplish at the Keck. When you're
Minimize
up there,
reflections in the wrong place.
it's amazing.
Not only that, if there was a moon out and you did ascend up through the clouds, the moonlight illuminates the clouds and you are an island in the middle of white cotton.
Yeah.
And you're not even connected to the earth. It's what you imagine Mount Olympus would have been.
I've been up
With-
there for
with-
when that happens
with,
too.
with the gods up there, and it's that's their place. It's their
Yeah.
so yes, and so my brethren, my fellow astrophysicists who have also observed from mountaintops. By the way, it's becoming a lost art because it's not lost, but it's becoming something we don't do anymore. Something called service observing, where you put in your observing program. It's handed to a technician at the telescope who points the telescope, gets the data, and sends it back to you. So the next generation doesn't have the experience that my generation did because there was a pilgrimage to the top of the mountain and you converted your life's path, you converted your life's schedule to become nocturnal. And in so doing, the journey was long enough because you're in the middle of nowhere. Now you got to go nocturnal. And by the time you're ready for this, you are communing with the cosmos. It is you, the detector, the telescope, and the universe. And there's an eerie silence up there too, because you don't hear anything. The hum of maybe the motor of the telescope, but that's it. And so all I'm saying is, if they choose to not have it, the telescope will go somewhere else. One of them is the Canary Islands. These are also volcanic hilltops, not as high as Mauna Kea. That's at 14,000 feet, by the way. I should have checked at what temperature water boils at the top of Mauna Kea. We could have rounded that story out. But I think it's around 180 degrees, actually. I think I did actually calculate it one time. But anyhow, so you'd find a mountaintop and we'll put it somewhere else. And the data won't be as good, but that'll be a consequence of it. And none of that'll go to Hawaii.
How do you think that's going to get resolved, though? If you had to guess.
I don't know. I just don't know.
A lot of people are against it, including Jason Momoa. Aquaman's against it.
Oh,
He was out there protesting.
Yeah, and so when you get celebrity types to put the weight of their name behind it, it magnifies the cause of others, even if they're in the minority.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I think natives should.
Has it been
Does
voted
everyone
on?
know who all the natives are? Is there some listing so that they can all vote for this one thing? You wouldn't want people voting who are not native if you're voting on whether it's so sacred you don't want to put a telescope there. You'd want people who have an indigenous concern for what goes on there. And
Even indigenous in reference to Hawaii is relative.
every
Right?
usage of the
Relatively-
word indigenous is relative.
Yeah, especially
Yes.
with Hawaii, because, I mean, really,
The only
it's
indigenous people are black people in Africa. Okay.
That really is
Because
it.
human life began in Africa. Everyone else traveled to where they were. So native, you set a time frame to declare what is native and what's not.
Yeah.
And a native in its simplest form is, are you born there? So I'm a native New Yorker, I'm born there. But I wasn't the original settler there. My species did not form on Manhattan Island.
Right.
So everybody traveled to where they are. They just got there before the Europeans. And so that has become the definition of indigenous. Were you there when the Europeans landed? Then you're indigenous. But to other life forms on that rock, on that Hawaii's are It's a volcanic archipelago. You know how that happens, by the way? You have all these multiple volcanoes in a string. You ever wonder why? How that happens?
Sure.
You did wonder? Or
Yes.
you know?
Why?
Oh, because there's a hot spot beneath Earth's crust. And it's just sitting there, okay? And when you're beneath Earth's crust, stuff doesn't move around the way it does on Earth's crust. Earth's crust shifts, okay? So that hot spot gurgles up, makes a volcano, then the hot spot goes dormant, but the shelf still drifts. You still have continental drift. So it drifts, then the hot spot says, time for me to gurgle again. It gurgles up, now you get another volcano. And then it goes dormant, that volcano goes dormant, it shifts, you get another one. Anytime you see a chain of islands, guarantee they're made by volcanoes over enough time for continental drift to have shifted the plates over the hot spot of Earth's mantle.
So do you think what they're concerned with is the eventual spoiling of this beautiful natural resource, that slowly but surely people are putting up houses there and developments and all these different things, and then the scientists are saying we need this sacred land because we're going to put a volcano, and they're like, look, there's already a I mean, we're going to put a telescope. There's already a telescope up here. Enough. You think that's what it is? They're trying to halt the progress of civilization? Or, I mean, maybe progress is a bad word. The expansion of civilization?
Yeah, I mean, let's go back. What did Teddy Roosevelt do? He said, we got to preserve these lands because they're beautiful. And by the way, he said that after he shot all those elephants and tigers and lions and tigers and bears. Yeah, I mean, I hail from a museum, the American Museum of Natural History, where he's the patron saint of that museum. What happened was he realizes how important this land is and how beautiful it is, and he's the patron saint of the national park system. So that's the secular version of sacred, right? We don't say it's sacred, but we've all decided as a community that we care about these lands, and you don't want to drill on it, you don't want to put housing. Was it Lyndon Johnson's wife, Lady Bird Johnson, who said, our freeways that we're so carefully building after the Second World War, the Eisenhower Freeway Project, okay, the interstate system, is this is our country. We want to keep it beautiful. So certain stretches of it, there are no billboards. Billboards would change your relationship to nature. So certain stretches of interstate are secularly sacred, if I can say that. So I remember visiting Australia, and there's the famous rock in the out in the outback, the Uluru. Please help me get my correct pronunciation of this. Uluru. And I'm told it's one coherent geologic rock. It's not just an assembly of rocks. And so I don't know enough about the geology of it, but I do know that the Australian Aborigines, Uluru, iconic red rock.
Look at that cool thing.
Okay, so that is one sort of geologic thing, and climbers want to climb it. By the way, that's huge. It's miles in circumference. Okay, so we visited it. I rented a bicycle with my wife and kids, and we rode around it. Okay, so now that is sacred to the local indigenous peoples. So they don't want you to climb on it. Well, I'm a rock climber. What do you care? I'm not going to ruin it. They don't want you to climb on it. And I try to think to myself, is there a counterpart to this that would sort of wake up a Westerner to say, I get it, right? Now, suppose some natives from Alaska, or some tribes from Africa, or some Aborigines came up from these remote places of the world, walked up to the Vatican and said, we want to climb the walls of this Vatican just for sport. What would we say? We want to climb the walls of St. Paul's Cathedral in downtown London. What would you say? No.
Yeah, but are those comparable? I mean, these are
wait, hold on.
constructions.
We want to rappel down the Tower of Big Ben. You're going to say no. Get the fuck. You would say no. These are important structures to us. Now, are you going to say are the equivalent? Well, we built those,
Yes.
and the natives didn't build the rock.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. It depends on how important that detail is to you. All I'm saying is, on the level of, we say this is sacred, you say that is sacred, and now you're going to have different rules for who's climbing what. I think it'll force you to take pause.
Well, here's an argument in like supporting what you're saying. Look at what's going on with the Himalayas. I mean, it's the human shit that they leave behind there.
All the climbers.
So disturbing. Yeah.
The climbers.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
really horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of it. Tons of human waste.
Okay, so what you do there is, if it's still not a problem that people are climbing, it's that they're leaving waste. You don't stop the climbers, you tax them at some level, so that now you have cleanup crews that come up after them.
Yeah, but it's
there's
incredibly
solutions. But there's
you know
solutions.
it's incredibly
no, look,
difficult to bring
dude.
anything back.
So
You're
you
almost,
tax them, you make it worth it. All right.
But
so
you understand, like they
here's what I'm
have to leave the bodies up there, right? You know that they can't.
that's
bring
what
them
I heard.
back.
That's what I
Yes.
heard.
Well, why do you think they could bring tons of shit when they can't even bring bodies?
Here's
back?
what I'm saying. When they invented cars, and cars were killing people in the street because people didn't know how to cross the street, they didn't know where to cross the street, people don't know how to stop the cars, they say, well, cars are actually a pretty useful thing. Do we ban cars? No, we make stoplights. Oh, people are crossing, well, we make crosswalks. Oh, let's put lanes so that cars don't hit each other. And let's make airbags so that you don't fly through the windshield. All right, so there are ways around problems if you value the thing that it is that you want to do. So if people are leaving crap up there, you make them bring it back. Or you develop a system that enables the stuff to come back no matter what. And if you can't do that and you don't want it messed up, then cancel the whole operation. We didn't cancel cars, we got really innovative about how to keep them.
I think there's a big difference between cars and human shit that's left on the side of the mountain. I think the real problem too is I think it's
If you
incredibly
value
visible.
mountain climbing and you want to keep doing it, then you solve the problem. This is what engineers do. That's all they do.
Right, but
is
you know
what's your
they've
problem?
never
I'll solve it.
been able to bring those bodies back because the physical limitations of the human body. You barely have enough juice to climb. It's so thin, the air's so thin, it's so dangerous.
And the energy draw on you is so
they
high.
leave those bodies there.
Was that the human shit that you're talking about, or is that
No, there's that
You're
and
talking about the
human
fact
shit.
that humans were there. That we're not very clean about our presence. That's what you're talking about, right?
Well, we're just being human. We have to go. When you got to go, you got to go. When you got to go up there, you just open up the hatch and let her rip down the side of a mountain, and the resulting
Do you know in the space station they recycle your urine and your crap?
congratulations to them.
Because they had put engineers on the problem.
Right.
What I mean recycle it, they extract all the water from it, and then what's left is highly dried
you drink it?
mineral. Yeah, water is water. It's a water molecule.
That's the thing about
By the way,
water.
every
If you
glass-
drink
did you see
water,
this?
People's pee is in it.
That's correct.
Yes.
You got a bottle of water here?
Caveman pee.
Okay. This has,
Napoleon's pee in it.
yes, there are more
Yeah.
molecules of water in this bottle than there are bottles of water, this volume of water, in all the world's oceans. So in other words, if you drank this and peed it out, okay, you have enough molecules in your pee and in your sweat and in the moisture that you exhale. All that goes back into the environment, scattering into all sources of water of the world, and there's enough of those molecules to occupy every half liter of water that covers the surface of this earth. So that given enough time, you scoop a cup of water out of there. I don't even care if you filter it. The H2O is still there. That is water that has passed through the kidneys of Abraham Lincoln, Genghis Khan, Joan of Arc, Socrates.
Plato.
No.
Jesus? Can I get a bottle of Jesus?
I'm trying to get my Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure list going here, okay? You just ruined it. But yes, Jesus would be included in that. So would Socrates, yes. So that is by the way, the same is true with breaths of air. There are more molecules of air in every breath you take than there are breaths of air in all the atmosphere of the earth. So that when you exhale, there's enough of those molecules to scatter. And the air currents will do this, to scatter into every breath of air that is inhaled. So when you take a breath of air, you have molecules of air that went through the lungs of Jesus. We're all connected. and there's no way around it.
And the water that we have is the water that we have, right? We drink it, we pee it,
Yeah.
it goes to the atmosphere,
Yeah.
it comes down as rain.
Yeah, and the rain is an important difference is most of the water on Earth is salt water that you can't drink,
Right.
and there's a limited amount that's fresh water.
How much of a
By the way, all
boon
the
to
glaciers are
society-
fresh water because it's frozen rain.
Right.
Frozen rain. Here's something that no one talks about. When the glaciers melt, where does the water go? Where's it go? Just tell me. You know the answer. Just back in the ocean. Okay. So, but this is now non-salty water going into the ocean. So you're mixing fresh water with brackish water, and they occupy different places in the vertical profile of the ocean. And because salt water is heavier than fresh water, so fresh water occupies the top.
Right.
It's not as salty as the water at the below. And there are circulations in the ocean, not only up and down, northern latitude, southern latitude, like the Gulf Stream. There's also circulation top to bottom. And the combinations of all these circulations create the stability of the ocean. If you disrupt that, oh my gosh. There are animals, fishes, that can't live anymore where they used to be because the salt level is different. And so some animals might go extinct. Some weather patterns will change because the ocean affects climate. So this is why climate modeling is so critical, yet so complicated. This is because there are a lot of variables that show up.
Why can't we take the salt out of the water?
You can, it just takes energy. You can do it.
But why hasn't that been being done on
You can, you have to ask.
scale?
Who's paying for the energy? Where are you getting the energy from? It's an energy thing.
But I would think that would be very valuable. I mean, think about how many people buy
It's not
bottles of
valuable
water.
enough yet. That's the point.
Well, is it that?
It's pure.
or
It's
is
just
it
it's
that
just
it's
money, dude. It's just money. You can ask, what does it cost to ship a half pint of water from Fiji? Okay, whatever the hell is the square bottle that you buy in a Fiji water? Is it Fiji, right?
Yeah.
Fiji water. What does it cost to bottle that in Fiji, ship it here, relative to desalinating the ocean? It's cheaper to ship like to Fiji. There'll be a day when that's not the case. And future wars are going to be fought over who has access to fresh water. And the value of water will go up. And by the way, the value of water in space is $10,000 a pound. So if you lasso a comet and you say this is a lot of fresh water, I guess you can bring it back down to Earth, but that's expensive. You're better off selling it to NASA for $9,000 a pound. Because it costs them $10,000 a pound to put water into orbit.
So you're better off keeping it up there and somehow or another.
Yeah. So if
transferring
you harness water in space, you're better off trading in space with it than bringing it back down to a planetary surface. At the moment, the
What is-
economics favor that.
What is the desalination process?
So it's simple. You just evaporate the water. It's basically a still. It's
Right.
it's a distillery, right? So here's a pocket of water that's highly salty, and you just heat it. The H2O evaporates, leaving sodium chloride behind. And at the end, you get this salt deposit at the bottom of your dish, at the bottom of your vessel. Oh, wait a minute. What happens to lakes that used to be there, salty lakes that used to be there that aren't? There's a salt deposit. That's the source of our modern day salt. This is what I tweeted the other day, that all table salt is sea salt. It just came from long buried, prehistoric, evaporated seas. So salt mines, and I was told by some geologists, I had a narrow usage of the word mine. When I think of a mine, I think of a hole in the ground. But mining operations include surface operations as well. So there's surface lakes that have evaporated, and you get salt from that, as well as the mines that you would dig down deep below. So all of that is a mining operation. My tweet only referenced the buried ones, but it's all from evaporated water. It's all from evaporated. It's all sea salt, is the point.
Now, nuclear power plants rely on steam, right? Isn't that part of
Wait.
what nuclear power plants do?
Just to finish the point. So you evaporate the water, and the salt left, maybe you might want to use that and make some sea salt out of it, table salt, and that evaporated water condenses out over here, and that is distilled water.
Right.
Now you might want to mineralize it so it tastes good, because distilled water doesn't taste good. Plus, it's not really healthy to drink it, as you probably know. you drink distilled water, it goes into equilibrium with your minerals, sucking minerals out of you, so it has the same minerality that your body does, and then you pee it out, and you'll systematically drain yourself of important electrolytes.
Yeah.
So generally, the water that you would say tastes good and you enjoy has some mineral bits, some kind of minerals in it.
Now, nuclear power plants, don't they? The process is using that nuclear energy to create steam to operate turbines and.
Yeah, basically all of our electricity today comes from essentially most of the electricity is coming from turbines that convert steam to electricity. So you heat water, the water makes steam, the steam turns the turbine, and the turning turbine generates the electricity.
Isn't there?
It's a matter of where do you get the energy to boil the water. That's what it comes down. Is it coal? Is it oil? Is it nukes? Is it wind? Is it hydro? All of this. If you get a hydro plant, by the way, in a hydro plant they don't have to make steam because they have the water pressure at the base of the dam moves through the turbines and turns the turbines and they make electricity. They don't have to heat anything because they have the water pressure to do that anyway. That is also solar power, by the way, because the sun evaporated ocean water. The water lifts up, becomes a cloud. The cloud moves over the land. The cloud rains into the lake that is above the dam. So the energy that got the water up there in the first place is all solar. So you should think of hydroelectric as solar, as well as wind energy, because wind is the unequal heating of air on Earth's surface, and that creates air currents. That's also solar power. It's all solar.
Isn't it conceivable that you could come up with a combination of desalination and power plant, where you're using the heat to combine, to make the turbines move, and then you steam it off, and that's where you get the water from?
That's an interesting idea, and I don't know how much that's been thought about. What you're saying is, I'm making steam anyway.
Yeah.
So why don't I do it
Suck
with
all the
salt
ocean
water
out? Yeah.
Yeah.
And make.
That's a nice 2-for-1 kind of thing.
3-for-1. You get salt out
And you
of
get
it,
salt
too.
out the other side. You
Yeah.
get salt.
Get salt.
You
Get fresh water.
get fresh water, and you generate electricity.
Yeah.
So do it. Patent it.
No. It's free for anybody who wants it. Go take that and run with it.
I have high hopes for tidal energy, because there's certain places on Earth where tides are very powerful and you just put some paddles in there and you sort of, and it works both ways when the water comes in and out.
No, is it battery technology that's the reason why LA isn't completely dependent upon solar? Because it seems like this is the spot to do it. Like, it never rains. I mean, if it rains here 50 days a year, it's crazy.
Yeah, or any desert, right?
Yeah,
and we're next door to the Mojave Desert, right? So one of the problems is, and by the way, the deserts are generally localized to certain latitudes on Earth. It's because of general circulation on Earth. So the air pockets on Earth, there's a lot going on. The air moves in a lot of ways, but there's an overriding circulation of air that has air sort of rising up at the equator. Imagine a cylindrical movement of air that girds the Earth. Okay, so just above the equator, you have a cylinder rotating where you have air rising, and just below the equator, you have a cylinder rotating the opposite way, so that air is still rising at the equator. Okay, so air rises at the equator, it's unstable, it makes clouds. The equator is the cloudiest place on Earth, practically. One of the cloudiest places. Well, how about the other side of those cylinders where the air descends? Okay? When you have descending air, you don't make clouds. Well, how big is this cylinder? It's about 30 degrees of latitude wide. So, your rainiest places on Earth are at the equator. That's where you get the Amazon rainforest and the like. And your driest places on Earth are at 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south. Because these cylindrical movements of air have descending air there. So the Mojave Desert, the Sahara Desert, the Gobi Desert, they're all around 30 degrees north latitude. So we live on the surface of the Earth where there are forces operating that are so much bigger than us that we don't even think about it. why is and India would be a desert because it's right in that zone, were it not for the seasonal monsoons. It doesn't rain much in India except when it's monsoon season. So the monsoon is sort of the exception to what would otherwise happen there. And that's why everyone loves the monsoon. They hate it, but they love it. It cools the weather. They get sources of water. There it is.
So to ask you the question again.
Oh, did
is
I
it
not answer it? Sorry.
batteries?
Oh, so
Battery technology? Like, why isn't LA completely solar?
it should be. It's not. And some of it is cost. LA is so car heavy. Right? And plus, there's a Lamborghini passing me at 20 miles an hour on the 405. This is the land of wasted horsepower, right? So any place that has a lot of sunlight should be thriving on solar panels, and you guys aren't. I looked around, very few homes have solar panels, and I don't fully understand that. You could, if you did that, then you'd run off your own power. You can do this.
Yeah.
You can do the
Make
equation.
it very difficult, by the way.
And yeah, I mean, the price might have to come down a little further. You don't really see the full price of oil. It's subsidized in ways that are not obvious to us. We built the roads with our taxes so that car companies could sell you a car that you drove on the road that was built for them. If they had to build all their own roads, the price of gas to go in the car would have been much higher. The price of your car would have been, all of that would have been much higher.
If the car companies had to do it?
What I'm saying is I make a product and I want you to use it, but there's no roads. Oh, I convince you to build the road so you can buy my car and drive on that road.
That's a weird way of looking at it.
It's full cost accounting. It's full cost accounting. What is the cost of coal? It's how many people died of lung disease, of pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Okay? That's the longest word in the Random House Dictionary.
Is it?
Yeah. That's basically black lung. Yeah, it's basically black lung. But you can break it up. Pneumono, ultramicroscopic, silicovel, what's the silicates in canoconiosis. So there's all medical bits stapled together to make that word. So what is the cost to their health, their death, their air quality, asthma? The total cost of oil is not what you pay at the gas tank. It's other things that we shell out that are not realized in the actual cost of that source of energy. If you full cost accounted what all this really costs, then the solar option would look way better than it does relative to it. That's all I'm telling you.
But when you're talking about cars and car manufacturers having to pay for roads, isn't that
No,
like
they didn't pay for
restaurants? Isn't that like restaurants having to pay for toilet paper?
No, restaurants restaurants have to pay for land that you would park your car on to go into the restaurant. Not in New York City, but in places where everybody has cars.
Right.
If you don't have valet parking, my restaurant will not occupy the entire plot of land I just bought. It's going to be a fourth of that land, and all the rest are going to be parking spots. I have absorbed the cost of your parking your car in my acquisition of that real estate, for example.
To make it convenient so people could use your facility.
Correct.
Right,
but I bore that cost as restaurateur.
Right.
Or maybe I'm renting, of course, but that's.
How does that relate to the car manufacturers being forced to pay for the roads, or that they should be?
That would have been interesting had they, because then it would have changed the pricing of everything.
But why would they be?
Are you going to make a car and no one has a road to drive it on?
That's your responsibility.
It's what?
It's your responsibility.
Then you don't have a business.
But don't you want a car? Yes. So we all agree. Cars are good. They move fast. They get you where you want to go, right? So how do we as a society make it easier for people to get where they want to go? Well, we all chip in and we make roads. It's not entirely dependent
Before there were
upon the people that make cars.
nobody's thinking, I want to go to Chicago tomorrow and I'll be back on Thursday. No one is even having that thought.
Before there were email, no one was thinking, I'm going to send you an email.
Right. These are not thoughts. So I'm just talking about all the forces that had to align to make it actually work.
I understand.
Okay? So now, what's holding back electric cars? Well, I might not be able to charge it. It takes a little too long to charge compared to my other vehicle. Are there enough chargers along the way? Well, these were questions that were asked when people got cars. If I have cars and it takes gas, is there a gas station? Oh, Standard Oil says we'll put a gas station there. because you're buying cars. And so it's a whole family of businesses coming together, and you're paying for a big part of that. It's not just the car. You paid for the roads. That's all I'm saying. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just describing it as a reality.
I get it. I just didn't understand the comparison to car manufacturers paying for it. That they
If I make a car and I want you to buy my car, I need a road. So I'm going to build the road. Oh, wait a minute. I convince you to build the road. That's even better. Oh my gosh, I made it a national priority. Oh, it's a security problem. We need a military design interstate system. That's what the interstate is, military. That's why it goes through mountains instead of over them. That's why there are long stretches of straightaways, so you can land an airplane on it. That's why they're built above the road. That's why the surface roads are not the same thing as highways, because the highways are not on the surface. Why? Because they're built up. Why? Because tanks can drive on them without decomposing the road. What specs did we put this to? To the Autobahn. The Germans invented the modern highway system. They invented the cloverleaf. They invented the off-ramps. They invented all of that. And their armies could move on their roads like it was nobody's business. And Eisenhower said, hey, I'll get me some of that. He comes, that's probably not how he said it, I'm guessing, but he comes on, convinces us all that we need to build an interstate. I got nothing against the interstate system. I'm just giving you the foundational facts for it. And by the way, the interstate system costs as much as going to the moon. About $100 billion in total cost.
Seems like a bargain compared to how many people use it versus how
Yeah,
many
it's
people
huge,
went to the moon.
and it grows the economy. There has a lot of, but basically it was sold as a security need, because if you're at war, you need to move material and personnel, and you might have to land an airplane in an emergency way. And so all freeways do this. You're going to crash a plane, do it on a freeway.
Happens.
Yeah, but do it because you might land safely, and if you don't land safely, the road comes to you to get to the hospital. Don't crash in a forest. We can't get to you.
Right.
Can't get emergency vehicles.
Good
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen this new Porsche has a new electric vehicle that's about its release? And it's
I haven't
got
seen it.
revolutionary, groundbreaking technology
What's
that allows
what's
it to
groundbreaking?
charge much faster. You could charge up to 80% in 20 minutes because it's double the. Well, pull up the information. Was it wattage or amperage?
Well, just a couple of things.
A bunch of different battery
You can't cheat
technology.
physics, so yes, some batteries charge faster than others, but what really drives the charging speed of battery is the voltage over which you charge the battery, and it goes as the square of the voltage.
Right.
So
a supercharger.
So if you charge an electric car in your 120 volt home electricity, it could take 30 hours. If you go to 240 volts, okay, it'll take 10 hours. If you go to 384 volts, so you keep going up, that drops precipitously. And you can get a voltage where the thing will charge in a couple hours.
Yeah, we have a supercharger here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we have some set up here for my Tesla.
So there you go. Which
so
Tesla
it
do you
charges
have?
quicker. The S.
Yes, yeah, cool.
P-Home
Yeah, so you'll
100P.
charge it in at most 90 minutes.
I don't think they call it that anymore. I think they only
The
have,
superchargers?
No, there's the Tesla. I think they call it they have like an S Raven. They have.
Oh, you don't think they call it the S anymore?
No, it's not the P100D.
That's the high
they don't call
battery
it that
capacity.
anymore.
Okay.
I think they have it based on whether it's a single engine or a double engine. They've simplified things. They've
Okay.
also removed all the labels to make it a little slicker, sleeker.
So in the Porsche, is it just
Pull it up.
they're selling a higher voltage charger to you?
Trying to find that info.
Or is the battery so completely different?
Google 10 interesting things about the new Porsche Taycan. How do you say it? Taycan? That's the article I was reading today. But-
So that's cool. So my concern is batteries are still kind of 19th century technology.
Yeah.
You know who invented the battery? Volta. Alexander Volta.
Oh, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
he's cool. Yeah.
Voltage.
Volts.
Volt.
Volts come from him.
Volt.
Yeah. All these guys got, they got famous. So Tesla, we got a car named after him. The guy had his car. There's actually a unit of electromagnetism named after Nikola Tesla.
No.
Yeah, it's Webers per square meter. Okay, so it's like the density of magnetic field strength within a certain area through a surface. So batteries charged by inductive plate. the conventional charger. Porsche claims that the Porsche turbocharging system charges at 350,000 kilowatts in 15 minutes.
80% in just 15 minutes.
Oh, that's cool.
It's not clear how
Very
Porsche will prevent battery overheating. Maybe they won't.
Yeah.
Maybe good luck, bitch.
So, so it could be vaporware, but we'll see. But
they've already been
but
driving
it's,
it.
Well, but it's game on. That's
Yeah.
what that means.
Yes.
It's game on. Whether it works or not, it's like Tesla's on notice. Everybody's on notice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose market share because people want to buy an electric car, and so
They want something that's going to charge fast, and that's the number one complaint that most people have over electric cars.
Or you find a way to. Okay, so that's one way. But another way is you find a way to swap batteries as quickly as in less time that it takes to fill a tank.
Yeah.
You know, how much time do you stand there with your hand on the nozzle waiting for the gas to go in?
Right, so they would have to have a mountain of batteries sitting there waiting for people to just come in. Take
Is that
a
any
new
worse than a
one out.
mountain than a sunken reservoir tank of gas? There's no different.
It would
Why is that any different?
Probably be larger volume, right?
Possibly, but so what? If it's economic, you just do it.
Right.
And
You
if
think
the
that's the
battery's
future?
all at the bottom of the car, and go like NASCAR, you run in, pop it up, take out the battery, put the next one, you're off.
Do you think that's the future?
Why not? It's better than charging the battery.
You don't have a car, do you?
No, I do. I do have cars now.
Keep
I
a
didn't
car?
used to. It's expensive as hell to garage it in New York. It just went up. The price just went up. The big price point of that was, when did the average cost to garage a car for a month in New York, in Manhattan, equal the average cost of a 2-bedroom home in the United States? And we've passed that cost to rent.
What's the average
So it costs
cost to
more
rent?
it was like some $600 a month or something
To rent a parking spot?
to rent a parking spot, right?
One spot.
One spot a month
$600 a
per
month.
month.